Because
And
you
I think,
can't do anything next if you don't have them sorted
right,
well.
right.
You don't know
Yeah.
what to do with
You just
it
have a
because it's a
wall
big
of
pile of
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's one of those out of sight, out of mind, because you don't even know what you have behind the first level of wall,
absolutely.
which,
Absolutely.
which I learned the hard way very early when I would start finding things like, oh man, this is great. Like I
Yeah.
didn't even know I had this stuff. Let's kind of deep dive a little bit in some of the business systems. What I'm trying to teach, this whole series, the Ecopreneur, is kind of in line with my book that I'm writing about backyard urban mining. So the book can be really divided into sourcing, sorting, and selling. And
Mhm.
sorting is that organizing principle
Yeah.
where you just don't get inundated and overwhelmed and become a hoarder,
Yes.
right? Because that can happen very fast in
Yes.
this kind of scrapping, reselling, e-waste industry. You get a lot of material in. So in terms of sorting, and I know that it's not apples to apples, but
It
what are
actually
some of
is.
your
Yeah.
high level best practices to stay sane, something that my readers could also benefit from when
Yeah.
taking in materials?
The first part of it is some training for the people that are doing it, because if they don't recognize what the things are, it's going to
Mm,
be very difficult for them to categorize and sort. An example
right.
is I had an employee many years ago, fantastic employee, except for the fact that they did not know how to cook or anything like that, did not know what lentils or quinoa were, and
Mhm.
spices, nothing. He was useless in the kitchen, fantastic in the closet, useless in the
Right.
kitchen.
Right.
But that high level aspect of knowing what all of the things are is really, really important. If you don't know what it is, you can't categorize and sort it. That's the first part. But the actual physical component of it, you have to have the space to do it. And this is,
Yep.
I think people really underestimate that. We use a lot of folding tables and shelving units because you can create your groups. One of the best tools we have is these super sticky, full sticky post-it notes. We use yellow, and this might seem ridiculous, but we only use this color because the writing shows up really brightly on it. We want to see these across the room. So this color and black Sharpies are the way to go. And then having something to sort into is really key. And so as your categories are starting to reveal themselves, we use what we call sorting bins.
Mhm.
And I'm guessing you guys probably do
Oh
something
yeah.
very similar, but we just use clear shoe boxes and we put a little piece of blue tape on them so we know that they're ours. And
Okay.
then each one gets a label. So then you have what you call the gross sort. So the gross sort is that first pass through.
Hmm.
So I'll use the pantry as an example.
Fair.
So if we're going to do a pantry, everything comes out.
Okay.
Doesn't matter what order, just get it out. It's all there. And
Hmm.
then you start sorting into your gross sort. So in a pantry, we might put all the canned goods together, all the boxed things together, all the snacky things together, all the breakfast items together. So that's your gross sort. So now
Hmm.
you can kind of see the sense of the volume of what you have in each category. Then you start your subsort. You're doing a finer, more granular sort. So here's where the canned goods might get subsorted into tomato products, beans, you might break out things like sauces. So once everything's sorted, then we do our edit process, and that's where we're weeding out.
Okay.
And in your case, your categories might be things that can't be sold, things that maybe
Right.
get tossed, donated, dangerous, whatever your
I
categories
was
are.
thinking in terms of maybe what you and I both have crossover with, it would kind of be a garage system because there's a lot
Yes,
of like sorting tools,
yes,
power tools, and there could be batteries and,
exactly.
so I like that gross sort. And also in our industry, we have this kind of touch it once if you can. So we really try to do the gross sort is a little bit of the subsort
Yeah.
in some
And if you
aspects
have
of
your categories tagged well enough ahead of
it.
time, because if you're seeing the same things all the time, then you can have your categories pre-populated and then you can just, it's like a mailroom. You just kind of keep placing them where they
Yeah.
go. We also zone everything out very clearly. So it's kind of like if I was thinking about a garage, you would have car, and then you might have car repair, car cleaning, car, da, da,
Mhm.
and then you might have that broken down. So when you do the gross sort, it's starting to give you, all right, how much space am I going to need for this volume? And then you can start moving them to an area
Right.
where now you're like, okay, I've got 30 cans of stuff. Okay, I can do this on this one kitchen island. I don't need a whole table for that. So that's what the gross sort does, is it gives us that sense of the overall volume, which then dictates where
Sure.
in the space we're going to lay it out.
Makes sense. Yeah.
That's how our brains work for that. I don't know how that translates to yours, but it's
No,
gross
that makes
sort,
sense.
subsort, fine sort, like that fine granular sort.
Yeah, we would have to mix in with some of the reselling aspects, like, okay, what items are selling, particularly
Right.
if right now, remote controls, the sales are horrible, right? So instead of really cleaning one by one and listing
Mhm.
nice lots, let's just throw it all in a big pile. And then when prices return, maybe we can just sell the whole
Yeah.
thing. So we would have to granularly sort based on what market demand was, but I think the
Mhm.
principles are kind of the same. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, that's what sorting's all about. Because
and
you
I think
can't do anything next if you don't have them sorted
right,
well.
right.
You don't
Yeah,
know what to do with
you just
it
have a
because it's a
wall
big
of
pile of
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's one of those out of sight, out of mind because you don't even know what you have behind the first level of wall,
absolutely.
which
Absolutely.
which I learned the hard way very early when I would start finding things like, oh man, this is great. Like I
Yeah.
didn't even know I had this stuff.
And that's what happens when you don't have those clear labels and those clear categories and that sorting isn't happening. It's just stuff just gets buried.
Yeah, and so it sounds like when you're facing a lot of material or intake is what we call it, the best way to not get intimidated is what you're saying is just highly organized labels, get
Mhm.
it right on your gross sort, start to make piles, and then you can start determining what kind of space you're going to need based on that. Every time a truck comes in, we have no idea what's in that truck. So we go through
Yes.
that. Okay, audio, video stuff goes over here, laptops go over
Yes.
here, desktops go over here, small electronics go over here. And then all of a sudden the truck's empty. You've got
Mhm.
9 piles. And like, okay, now let's get these 9 piles figured out. And then we start kind of sorting it a little bit more granularly, and then you're done. Great.
It's so intimidating when you first start. I know when we have new organizers that start with us, we usually start them on an unpack because it's low risk and anybody
Mhm.
can unpack a box. They're very deer in the headlights because it feels so intimidating. There's
Yeah.
so much stuff. And you just have to almost kind of put the blinders on and just one step, one step, one step, and you will get there. But if you ignore it or you don't address it and you keep putting it off, it's just things are just going to keep. And that's how we end
Yeah.
up having clients because they just get buried. A lot of our jobs are like an archaeological dig. And I'm sure you see that as well.
Yeah, sometimes for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Well, as far as sorting goes, that's a huge business practice and to get that as efficient as possible. Can you speak more broadly on why it's so important to have effective business systems? You helped us get set up on Basecamp when we got started, and you were very eloquent in your thinking there. So I figured we kind of share some of that as well.
Yeah, sure. So when I first started 20 years ago, there weren't the kind of systems that people have. And also it was just me. So from a entrepreneur standpoint, my biggest word of warning for people who are more solo people or just a small team, it's really easy to get in the trap of all the information's here and I'm going to dole it out to the people
Yeah.
who need it. And it's really easy to get in the habit of not documenting everything because you know everything. And this is what happened to me because it was me, and then it was me and a few people, and we were all working together on the job, and I was doing the admin back end stuff, and it was just this very core little group. Once you get past that, and you as the owner wants to step back from the day to day and the hands on, this is where things fall apart. And I'm prefacing what I'm going to say about systems to set the stage for why they're important. And you
Okay.
and I had that conversation. You were trying to step back, you were trying to give people the
Right.
power to do their jobs, but they couldn't do their jobs because they didn't know what they were supposed to be doing because you had
Got
all
it
the
all in
information.
here. Yeah. Yeah.
And so what happens is if you're not documenting your processes, if you're not documenting how you're doing every single thing, the life cycle of your business, then everybody keeps coming to you to find out what they're supposed to do next. And they can't take that power and have that autonomy to do the work they're supposed to do if they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Then they have to come report back to you what they did. And now you've got more stuff in your head. So it's a vicious cycle that will literally drown any entrepreneur as soon as they start to grow.
Right.
So,
And it
so
gets
that,
really stressful and heavy too when once everyone's
yeah,
like, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now? And you're like, it'll ruin your day.
it'll ruin your sleep.
Yeah.
It'll
Yeah.
be all you think about. And I don't know about you, but I do not want to be thinking about this stuff at 6 o'clock at night or on the weekends. We actually had started with a couple of different systems, and it doesn't matter exactly what system you use. A lot of it comes down to who needs to access it, what kind of information you need to hang on to. But what I've found, what makes an effective project management system is one that will do the things that you need in your company. So for us, what I needed was I needed actionable items. We needed robust to-do lists, and I needed a central spot where all of the client information could live. Matthew Rogers is our client. Here's his project. Here's all the information about him and his family. Here's the information about the different projects that we're doing. Here's the measurements of the space that we're working in. Here's our shopping list for the products. Here's the before photos, the after photos. I needed a place for all of that, so that when my team goes to do that job, they don't have to ask me any questions. Everything that they need to know is in that project. The to-dos are in there. They're all laid out. They know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. I also wanted to be able to communicate in real time. So Basecamp, the system that we use, has document management. You can put photos. It has robust to-do lists, and it has a messaging component, which is like text messaging, but it's all kept within the system, as you know. Having all of that together meant that my team can communicate within the system. I can see the activity of everything that's happening during the day. So all of that is laid out in this one place. Some people use Dubsado, you've got Monday.com, Insightly, you've got things like Trello. There's a lot of different ways that you can set up your systems. I think a lot of it comes down to what is it you're trying to accomplish? Do you need something that has a robust CRM component? Basecamp doesn't have that. Maybe a different system might work. What information do you need to store? Do you need to assign people things and have dates and have that all laid out? Do you need to communicate within it? But if you need a system that you also need to email everybody, maybe you need to do video conference, whatever it is, looking at all of the different parts of what you need, and then looking for a system that encompasses at least a chunk of it. So the way that we use Basecamp is, as I said, we put all of the information in there, and then it is my team's responsibility to review the project. They have to-dos to add their information. So when they start the project, they're reviewing it, they're looking at everything, they ask any clarifying, and then when they're done or during the day, they are communicating with my offsite team, they're putting project updates, they are checking off all of the to-dos, they're letting me know if we need a follow-up visit or if there's additional actionable items. So it's their responsibility to get into the system and put everything in there. And then I will go and take a look at it and review it and see if there's anything that we need to do after that. And then we can invoice. And so the next steps happen. So for any entrepreneur, it's not about finding the perfect system. It's about finding one and then starting with it. Just get started. Find a place that you can capture your information. Maybe it's Google Workplace. Maybe it's Google Docs. And I will say that I don't think Google has like to-do lists are challenging. That's a big part of what we do. So that's why we tried using Google and it did not work for us.
We started there, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah, that's why I really like Basecamp.
But you got to get to Google. It's free. I mean, what they do offer.
That's exactly it. So I will also say, as a warning to entrepreneurs, when you try to do everything for free or on the cheap, sometimes you will really shoot yourself in the foot. Sometimes you just have to put the investment into it so that it will give you the platform. So here's an example. Let's say that you don't want to pay for any systems to hold all your information, so it's all in your head. Or maybe it's just Google Docs, so you can have information there, but nobody knows how to find it, and you're constantly having to be like, here's a link, here's a link, here's a link, or whatever. And you can't have the to-do list, and you don't have that robust aspect of it. So what's happening is your energy and your brain and your time is being sucked away for all of this stuff that maybe you pay $50 or $100 a month or whatever it might be for some app that can hold all that information. It's really hard to do strategic planning if you are bogged down in the working in your business. That's all you're doing, and you're giving every bit of your energy to your people, as you should, because they deserve it. But you've got the clients demanding your attention. You've got your team demanding your attention. I have to pay my bills. But if you're constantly giving to all of these things, and you're not setting anything in place to capture all that, it adds up. And then you don't have the time to sit back and think about, how am I going to grow? How am I going to manage all of this? And that's when I see businesses fall apart. I do a lot of consulting for people at that stage where they want to grow, they want to step out. And that's when everything just falls apart, because their team doesn't know what to do, and they're trying to scramble, and they're constantly juggling all the balls. So you've got to give those balls a storage rack.
Yeah, I mean, I try to talk about invest in automation where you can. Automation doesn't have to be a robot on some assembly line. It could be a reply of an email, hey, I'll get back to you, and then a reminder
100%.
to get back to them. But yeah, I do want to get into kind of future thinking, right? So
Yeah.
I know that you see a bunch of material that comes in that people accumulate. We very much live in a capitalistic society that is fueled by consumerism, right? Love it or hate it is it's what we live in. And I know that you see all the devices and all the newest stuff and all of that stuff build up. I have a discussion going on right now in my field. E-waste is your computers, your audio, video stuff, your video games. It's really got just a kind of a couple categories, your vacuums, things like that. But we haven't really got into what the future is going to look like when our sweaters are attached to the internet, right? And our goggles and all of these wearable devices as we get closer and more connected to the internet of things like refrigerators and stoves and sweaters, that becomes more of a thing. So I like to have this discussion as far as what do you think the kind of material that you're going to be sorting or your team is going to be sorting in 10 years is going to be different than today? There'll obviously be consistencies like canned foods and things like that.
Right.
But what do you think some of the new stuff will be?
That is such a good question. I think a lot of it's going to be more and more specialized organizing products. I think we're going to see
Mhm.
a lot of that. We're already seeing a lot of that. We just call it org porn, but think about how much
Yeah.
there is styling refrigerators. Have you seen the pictures of the refrigerators and
Yeah.
the insides? We make those, we do that,
Yeah.
but we didn't have products to do that until fairly recently. So I'm seeing the product end of things
Hmm.
really adding up. One thing that's more in the tech world that I'm starting to see a little bit more of is more of like inventorying and
Hmm.
apps and devices to track and inventory products and the stuff that you have in your home, like home inventories and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
Okay.
there's a whole lot of technology component to it because most of it's app based,
Software.
but
Yeah.
but people are using their tablets for these kinds of things. There's a lot of apps out there for managing wardrobes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's whole wardrobe. Like you can put your whole wardrobe into an app. It'll put outfits. It's like a virtual closet. There's a lot of apps out there that manage your groceries. That's something that we've not really gotten into. The technology organizing, it's a whole other field.
Oh, yeah.
We started to get into home inventory where you photograph and measure all the things, but there are people out there that do a lot of organizing in tech. We don't really do that kind of thing, but I'm thinking in people's homes, the kinds of things that there's a lot more gadgets. I think
Yeah. Okay.
kids'
Yeah.
toys have really changed. You still have the moms that want to do the Montessori, the wood
Sure.
blocks, things like
Hmm.
that. And then you've
Yeah.
got the Lego world. So you've got
Right.
Legos, that's its own world. And you start seeing the motorized parts and all the technology coming up with Legos. That's really interesting. And then you've got the ones that are all about the video games. And that's a category that we need to learn a little bit more about. So much in
Yeah.
terms of the streaming, the game consoles, all the different kinds of systems. I remember when my daughter got a Nintendo Switch and how exciting that was for her to have all the games. And I know for myself, hold up, I actually, where did it go? I stuck it in a drawer because I didn't want to look at it. Oh, here it is. Okay, this is a stack of shame. Hold up. Here's
Stack
my
of
shame.
shame.
Hold on.
Oh, yeah. You'd be surprised how many we see of those a day. Yeah.
This is our
Wow.
stack of phones that I don't know
Wow.
what to do.
Well, I happen to recycle those. So
I
next
You
time
will
I
be
see
seeing
you,
these soon. I have to ask
that's
people,
funny.
like ask my daughter, do you want this one back? No, she doesn't. Like this is what we see all the time is what do you do with the old phones? And I think as technology gets faster and faster, it's what do you do with all of the old technology? And we know what happens with that, but sorting on site and how do you store it?
Yeah.
Cords,
Yeah.
cables, are these going to become moot at some point? Is everything going to become
Sure.
um, wireless? From a charging standpoint, like what is that going to look like? So that's something that we're seeing a lot of my team is dealing with is a lot of the technology that people have looking down the road. I think the areas that we're going to see the biggest changes in is going to be kids' toys. It's going to be
Okay.
technology and office
Sure.
things.
Sure.
I remember so many offices I used to go into to work and it was huge printers. And here's my printer now,
Right. Tiny.
which I
Tiny.
hardly ever use because
Yeah.
who prints sense anymore. So
Right,
things
right.
like paper management, I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm starting
nobody
to
really does.
see walkable desks, like ones with treadmills on your desk.
Yes,
We've done a couple.
100%. We have a client who's she's an artist, and we actually got her a motorized one that stands and goes down. It's beautiful,
Oh
actually.
yeah, I bet.
But the motorized, and that's actually one of the other things that I'm seeing a lot of is exercise equipment,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
is how that has changed. People who love the treadmills, and then it was the Pelotons, and then it's the tonals, and it's the Lululemon mirrors, and all of those things.
Oh, mirrors are something that we're going to see a lot of.
The tonals are really big,
Mm-hmm.
and moving those, if you move them wrong, if you don't have the tonal
Yeah.
people come and do it,
Right.
they invalidate the warranty, is my
Oh man.
understanding.
Yeah.
And if it breaks, it's a piece of junk. The exercise equipment is a big thing for, and a lot of people want home gyms, but that stuff changes so much. I remember when I was like, what's a tonal? What is this? Like, is the
Yeah.
mirror? So we're learning all the time in our industry, what do people have? And then how do we categorize, sort, and store it? And then where does it go when they
Right.
don't want it anymore? And this is the key. People think their stuff is worth so much.
Right. Yeah. No.
There's a term for that, and I can't
Right.
think of what it is right
I,
now, but
we'll find it. Yeah, there is a term
when
for it.
it's yours, it becomes more valuable, but it
Sure.
is not.
Right.
Nobody wants your old exercise bike.
Yeah.
Nobody
Even
wants
that
any of
stack
that.
of phones you had, probably
Nobody
three
wants these.
grand. But it's like 3 grand is what you probably have invested in all those versions. And that's just a
Mhm.
guess. But really, it's worth about $10.
And here's the other thing that I see people doing, and this is maybe totally unrelated, but we have some clients that perseverate so much on finding out the value and
Mhm.
trying to find just the right place for it to go.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're just in a triage moment where you just need to let it go. You have to think about, what is the value of my time? What is the value of the space around me?
Yeah,
And
real estate has a value. Your storage definitely has a value.
our world only has so much space to it, which is why a service like
Finite
yours
amount
is
of
so
space.
incredibly valuable to help get rid of these things and have people feel good about what is happening to it. And I'm so glad that you can make a profitable business out of it, which is even better.
Yeah, I'm working on this kind of love good money model. It was inspired by Ichigai, this Japanese philosophy or word. It's like 4 things. Basically, what does your community need? What do you need for yourself? What are you good at? What you can make money at? I probably just butchered that, but I've kind of
But
refined.
that's how I approach it too. When I started my business, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but when we moved here in 2005, Claudia was 3, and I was like, what am I going to do with myself? And I read a book by Julie Morgenstern called Organizing from the Inside Out. And I looked at Bill and I literally said,
That's it.
holy
Yeah.
shit, people
Yeah.
do this for a living and they get paid for it?
Right. Right.
It's like, you'd
And
be so good
paid,
at that. And
well
I was
paid
like,
well.
I
Yeah.
know, right?
Yeah.
And then I started my business and I realized what I love about it. I love the satisfaction of the sorting and the creating the systems and all of that. But what I loved the most was how it transformed people's lives and the difference that we can make in people's lives. If you're a busy mom, for example, which you're not, but if you were a busy mom,
Not anymore. Those days are
walk
done.
into your pantry and see everything that you had. All your stuff was where you need an easy grab. Your kids could very easily grab their snacks, grab
Mhm.
their cups, put them away. And you could walk into your kitchen and you knew if you opened your drawer, everything you needed to prep a meal was right there. And only the things that you needed and wanted were right there. And all the clutter was gone and everything
Yeah.
was compartmentalized and labeled. Think about how serene that would feel, how calm you can feel, how productive you can be, because productivity isn't just for your business. If you can be productive in your home life, it frees up your
Sure.
time to spend with those kids,
Absolutely.
do the things that you want to do. So, as a business owner, having that passion for what you do, I still have that passion even after 20 years, and I love it so much. And when I think about people starting in business, it is lovely if you can find something that feeds your soul for the
Yeah.
output that you're
Yeah.
getting. I have found that what I thrive on now is crafting the systems to support the team and the work that we're doing. But I didn't realize that when I started. I thought it was just about doing the work, but now I love building the business as much as I love doing the
Yeah. Now
work.
that the work is consistently coming in, you can focus
Yes.
on the
And
other
my
stuff.
knees are too old to craft too much.
I feel that. I dropped a TV on my foot. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm
Oh,
gonna hire
it's
somebody.
so hard.
Yeah.
But I think that when you're thinking about the standpoint of that, of what is needed How much do you love it?
Mhm.
What are you giving
Yeah,
back to the community? I have given up profit to give back to the community in ways that make me
yeah,
happy, that feed my soul.
sure.
And my team really likes it too. I think that they respect that and they love it. I paid them for an entire day to go work at Shower the People. We actually spent 2 solid days there
Nice. Wow. Wow.
because it's important to me that they see what's out in our community. I love being in a position now to be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. Yeah,
Yeah,
the love good money just comes down to do what you love to do and you enjoy, what is good for yourself and others or your community, and what you can make a living doing. It's okay to make good money. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's even better when it's something that you love and it's something that's needed. I have enjoyed our conversation. It went a lot faster than I thought it was.
I kept looking at the clock going, are we
Yeah,
done? Is it
yeah,
happening so fast?
yeah. No,
I
this is
wanted to
great.
touch on one last point
Yeah, yeah,
for
absolutely. Any
building
rapid?
your business. Never feel guilty about your success. From women's perspective, I think eh, I can't speak for men because I don't know, but I know that there was a long time that I had a hard time being confident and feeling like I deserved this, like I deserved the success or what. I believe me, I've had so many hard times during COVID and all this. Oh
Sure.
my gosh, there have been times like, oh my God, I'm not going to make payroll. I totally get it. But on the whole, I know at this point I am successful. I do have a strong business and I'm very confident about that. I used to downplay it. And not that I'm going to be bragging all over town, but I feel like I know what I'm doing at this point finally. And I'm good at it. And I'm willing to admit that. And I think that people need to own their success and
Sure.
pat
Yeah.
themselves on the back for it and acknowledge it and say, I am doing a good job. And that might be a little touchy feely for some
No,
people, but you
yeah,
have
it makes sense.
to, yeah, you have to not just build other people up, but you have to make sure that you're building yourself up too, because if your plate is full, then you can do what you need for others and don't work 24/7. It's really easy to
Yeah,
just keep working, working, working. But if you don't take a little bit of a step back and just take that weekend away, or even if it's
right.
super simple, like I
Or
went
not
to
as
a
natural,
toenail
but
club.
you gotta manage it.
Yeah, I love to work. I will work pretty much over anything, but I've had to really try to take that step back and make myself do things that are fun and set things aside so that I can recharge. So don't let yourself get caught up in the trap of the constant busy work.
Right, yeah.
And then be proud of yourself for what you've built.
You do deserve it. You've been inspirational to me for sure, along the way. I think with my web and tech career, we've had some involvement with my vintage store career. We've had some involvement, and now with my e-waste business, you've definitely been involved and inspired that. So I really want to thank you for all the great advice.
I love the way that you've been able to reinvent and rethink things and looking ahead into the future. Um,
Yeah,
I love learning from other people and seeing what they're doing because
sure.
I sure don't know it all. I learn something new almost every single day, and I love taking it, thinking about it, and what can I do with that?
Yeah, I
Hence my
think
proposals. I'm very excited.
that's a commonality, I think, with entrepreneur-minded people like ourselves is that we're these students for life. One of the things actually that I enjoy the most in this sorting aspect is getting that phone out. What is this? Learning about things that come in, and then it's just expanding my mind. I had no idea that this whole brand
Yes,
existed or this item existed and why it existed for. And so I'm constantly learning this, how to sort things better, how to be more efficient. So there's
mm,
this constant sharpening of the mind that I can't imagine not even when I'm old and retired, not
mhm,
having that some way, like whether it be painting or reading or I'm sure
100%.
we'll just be downloading courses at that point.